This is a special report coming to you from the Skills and Technology newsroom high atop the towering metropolis of New York City. The following information has... Oh my God, I can't really do this for real. Anyway, here you go, Lou. Take it away.
So here's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I read something in Fast Company, that magazine, that I thought was awesome, and it was called The Gross Deadly History of Color. And it reminded me of my training at American Express, and it was called media training, Joe. And they gave us a little card, how to handle the press and all this other stuff. And the biggest thing was, don't wear red on TV. And I want to know why.
You should ask
I just want to know why. Yeah, exactly. Don't wear red. I'm like, okay, I don't know.
It's usually patterns. Patterns are like the first, don't wear this pattern, don't wear tight patterns,
right?
Because something happens called ringing, which isn't even so prevalent anymore in today's. But the color red back in the day,
yeah,
had a tendency to read differently.
What do you mean read?
What you see on television versus what you see in person.
Gotcha.
And I got this coming up. I was warned that we had used a graphic, and the card slid in. Card. A graphic slid in during the show, and
right.
I had used a Pantone color red, and when
right.
it hit air, it didn't look the red that I had thought it was going to look like. And at that time, I had just was starting out. One of the executive producers said, "That's not our red. Why is that up there?" And I said, "Well, red's red." And then afterwards, one of the lighting directors and video directors, I'm not sure which one, corrected me and said, "Well, there's TV red, and then there's red." So what happened is the way the cameras perceive the color at that time.
Right.
They would actually have their own version of it, much like printers. You can print, you can have a color, and everybody has this. Well, everybody that's been around for a while. You have laser printers or your color printers, and you're working on your screen. You know exactly what your colors look like. It looks great. Then you print it, and the colors look wrong.
Got it.
Because your printer isn't calibrated to what your screen is. And even your screen's changing the colors. So colors are a very subjective thing that you have to have everything calibrated across the board. That leads me to another great one before you interrupt, because I didn't even think of it. All of us have seen, those bars that appeared on your television a while ago with stripes and colors?
Yeah. Those like rectangles.
Yes. And those are brilliantly called color bars.
Okay.
And what you're supposed to do is at the head of your tape, at the beginning of a tape or the beginning of your show, there used to be, you'd have to put 1 minute of color bars up and 1 minute of 1K tone.
Okay.
Then once you were done and you would print your tape the way you did it and did everything, when you sent that off, let's just say tape for a minute, when you sent that master tape off to the station for airing, their engineers first thing they would do would be look at your color bars and your tone, and then they would calibrate their machines to match your bars and tone. So it was really an important step, which interestingly enough now no longer has any real validity, even though we still do it. A lot of times in live transmission, the first thing the transmission people ask me is, give me bars and tones. So we'll send them tone, they're checking level, and then they're looking at the bars kind of just to see that they're not washed out or they're not black and white or there's not something vividly wrong with the colors.
Sure.
But in the old days, all of that was calibrated. And as I drag this out even further, calibration used to be a big part of how things worked, because your engineers would, with a chip chart, which is a colored chart that you put in the studio, and then that gets lit the way the studio's going to be lit for your cameras. Then all your cameras converge on a focus of that chart. And the video operator goes each camera, it's called painting the camera. He goes
Okay.
to each camera and sets all the colors so that they're all the same balanced, so that your reds are red, your blacks are blacks, your whites are whites, your grays are grays, and every camera matches. The end game for that is when all your cameras go back to their blocked position for the show.
Yeah.
When your director cuts from camera 1 to camera 3 to camera 2 to camera 1, there's no color shift. So if you have camera 1 looking at your host and she or he has on a blue shirt
Right.
of a particular color, when you cut to another angle, that shirt doesn't change color or their face doesn't change color. So if the cameras aren't painted and matched, that will always happen. Again, the more sophisticated things become today, the more advanced technology is. A lot of this has become automated within the technology itself. But back in the day, that position, the video op, that position was probably one of the most critical within the control room. So there you go, colors. All from me
That's
asking me
great.
why red.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And you know what's really funny? Because the technology, you talked about going way back. I'm going to go way, way back to the ancient Egyptians. And to make color, it was either one of two things, extremely poisonous or really creepy. So yellow, the Egyptians found the chemicals and minerals that were just full of arsenic and you would die. So was their orange. If you had another color, it was filled with mercury or lead poisoning. Green was sold as rat poison today. And in terms of creepy, if you wanted the color purple in ancient Egypt, you had to ground up snail shells. Carmine, which is a deep red, was boiling thousands and thousands of beetles at the same time. If you want Indian yellow, that was cow urine.
Nice.
And you know what? What I really wanted to ask you to make this practical is you got a guy like me who is older, has learned things from a reputable source, and I still believe that they're true, like this whole red thing. How do you coach somebody, Joe, who's younger, to work with people like me who still believe that this stuff is true?
I'm going to reverse that.
Yeah, go ahead.
What the problem, and it was funny because as I was going through the whole chip chart and engineering and video engineering, I was flashing back to the video engineers that were revered when I first came into the business and are now the last consideration, to the point that nobody even thinks to crew them in a lot of smaller production environments.
Wow.
And these guys were, I mean, they were gods because they had a match. You know,
Right.
they were right up there with, you know, film guys who paint each frame.
Right.
And they were really, really technical and really good at what they did. And it's just that. So now when I talk to younger executive producers or younger network people that I'm obligated to crew to, and they look at this and go, well, why is this guy here? And why does he make that much money? I
Right.
said,
Right.
well, it's kind of really important. And they're like, nah, I don't think so. I think we can get rid of that. We don't really need that. So it's a tough thing because it's one of those things you don't see.
Right.
And cameras are so forgiving now
Right.
that you really, all the technology in the chain really works so well that you're
Right.
not going to land on it anymore. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it did, and you know what? I'm stuttering. It reminded me of how important it is to be cross-trained, which you always say, you know, in media, learning different skills to move you around based on the skill you originally learned.
Correct. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Thanks for listening to today's show. We've got some really exciting online courses coming up on ferocity.com. See for yourself the exclusive details at ferocity.com and make sure you get on board for early notification of class openings, enrollment opportunities, and founding member benefits. Details at ferocity.com.